All right, I'd like to call this Community Service Committee meeting to order. Melvina, you ain't been asked to pray all day. Can you help us out?
Monday, we release each and every one throughout this meeting. Give us wisdom and knowledge for the betterment of our nation. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Melvina. If you had a chance to review the minutes from March, I need a motion.
We need to do roll.
Oh, I'm sitting here looking at it. I'm sorry, Shelley. Can you do roll call, Shelley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Daryl Legg,
Here.
Melvina Shot Pouch, Sasha Black Fox Qualls, Danny Callison, Julia Coates, Joe Deere, Mike Dobbins, Kevin Easley, Lisa Hall, Johnny Kidwell, Dora Petskowski, Cody Poindexter, Joshua Sam, Mike Shambaugh, E.O. Smith, Condessa Cheehee, Victoria Vasquez. We have a quorum.
Now, can I get a motion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, moving on, reports. We had Jennifer Kirby, Human Services.
Said he'd give it for me. Good afternoon, Council. You have our monthly report. I just wanted to see if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for Jennifer? If none, thank you very much. Who we got down there? Victoria?
I'm not sure this is in your department or not, but when we were doing the income tax preparation, is that through your department?
No, that's under Anna's group in Commerce.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Sasha?
Thank you. Has everyone been notified about LIHEAP? Have those notifications gone out if they've been awarded or declined?
No, right now, we have completed all the elderly and disabled. And those payments are going out, going to be sent out the remainder of this week. If they're not on the elderly disabled, we're still processing. We haven't notified everybody yet, but if you have a question on anybody, just send it to me. And
Okay, thank you.
We'll reach out to them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jennifer, no more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you and your department. Next up, Department of Transportation Infrastructure, Michael Lynn.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council. You have a copy of our report. Just a couple of things to highlight. I mentioned last month that our water and sanitation facilities construction program, we're moving to a new office at Marcoma. They are now in that new office. It's located at 855 Marcoma Circle here in Tahlequah, just off of 4th Street, near the Marcoma Wellness Center. So they are moved in there. They will be hosting this week the Indian Health Service SFC Sanitation Facilities Construction Conference at the Chota Center, April 16th through the 18th. That's coming up this week. And then also want to mention a couple of road projects. The Delonaghy South Road Project in Adair County is starting to come to a close. We've stopped contract time on that project, and the contractor is working through some of the punch list items there. The Mud Valley Road Project here in Cherokee County is moving along well and coming along great. We do have a project out to bid in Rogers County called Bridge 22 over Little Pryor Creek. We have a bid opening on that scheduled for April 23rd of '24. And then lastly, I've mentioned in the past reports that we had applied for a grant for US 59 between Jay and Grove to widen that. We did apply for that grant. It's called a RAISE grant. We have not heard back anything on that, but we are also pursuing an additional grant for that same project called an MPDG, Multimodal Project Discretionary Grant. Again, it's a U.S. Department of Transportation grant, so we have the same grant application out there for the same project out there for two different grant applications in hopes of getting one of them, but that'd be a project, co-op project between us and Oklahoma Department of Transportation. So that grant is due on May 6th. And with that, Mr. Chair, I think that is my report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions for Michael? If not, good report. Thank you, sir.
All right,
good to see you. Next up, we have Todd Enlow, Housing Services.
As you know, I've always got some witty remarks, usually at Michael Lynn's expense. Told him I wasn't going to let him off today. How many are familiar with the folklore of how Tahlequah got its name, which means two is enough? So Dr. Teehee is, so that there's two stories or folklore stories of how Tahlequah got its name, but I discovered what that is today. With all the construction and the traffic, for me trying to make it here, two is enough means the number of cars are going to make it through any stoplight through Tahlequah. Just two is enough. And so, given that Michael Lynn works so much on transportation, I'm going to hold him accountable on that. You have our report, a couple of highlights I would like to point out there. Our low-rent apartments, there are 965 that are currently occupied. Total rental assistance that's being provided across all 14 counties is 1,504 people receiving it, or households receiving assistance. And then we also have 1,434 homes in lease-to-own home ownership modules that are being paid over that 25 or 30-year period. There was one other item on here I wanted to point out before going into a construction update. Notice in the HUD-VASH report, we have 100% utilization with our veterans using those coupons and vouchers with HUD-VASH. And I think that is it for now. So, construction updates. The housing addition in Tahlequah, 24 homes going in there. We've already started sodding and seeding many of the lots on that site. We are waiting on TPWA to finish the secondary power, actually electrifying those homes so we can start installing flooring. Some of the flooring is already down in several of the houses, and all of the sidewalks are poured on the interior. We're working on the exterior. So in Tahlequah, if I remember correctly, there's almost 2 miles of sidewalks just in that housing addition. Crittenden Addition in Stillwell has 15 homes named after the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. We are doing electrical top out in about 10 of those homes, finishing up exterior painting, interior painting, installing interior trim, and then driveways are poured to 12 of the 15 houses. We are framing house number 15, which is the final house, and asphalt base layer for the street was poured last week, and they'll be working on that more this week and next, depending on the weather. Warrior Addition in Muskogee. We're waiting Oklahoma Natural Gas to come in and install the gas line so we can get the meters installed. We have several of the streets paved there. We'll be starting the paving of the final street in that housing addition most likely next week. And they are also starting to seed and sod. So those homes are actually going to be finished probably by the 1st of May, if not the first or second weekend of May. So that one's coming along pretty quickly. 12 houses going in there in the Muskogee Warrior Addition. Redbird Smith, which is in Salisaw, we mobilized on April the 1st. Finished goal is by the end of the year. We did have to issue a stop work order on that site due to some issues related to JT Stites Drive. We met with our engineers today, and we're meeting with the city tomorrow. But they've already done quite a bit of work getting prepped and ready and moving that along. We will restart the work. I just didn't want to penalize the contractor for a work stoppage. Ganohely Addition in J. We sent out the first bid package for the site work, and we de-scoped those last week, and we'll be sending out notices to those contractors to get started. That subcontractor gets started. Oshaleta, we're waiting on the environmental reviews to come back for the Oshaleta housing that we have scheduled there. Collinsville, we're working between Rural Water District Number 3 for Washington County and the engineers and architects to get that project rolling. We're just waiting on the final permitting from ODEQ. And then Sequoia Heights Community Building, That is a housing addition back here, kind of over the west of the powwow grounds. That is for elders. It's currently occupied, but we're building a community center with a storm shelter for those elders. And so that project's currently out on the street, looking for contractors. Bids are due back at the end of this month, so in just a couple, 2 weeks. And then we sent out 14 more houses for individual homes across the 14 counties. Those bids went out last week. I think Chief's already tagged that on Facebook, so there's 14 more homes that are undergoing construction. One of the things I did want to brag on, and I shared this with Chief and Deputy, and I meant to print that out so I'd actually have the exact numbers. So every week we get a construction update to say, here's the status of all these projects that are going on for individuals. And a lot of times, status change, so we get a status change at 30% complete, 60% complete, or 100% complete. This last week, we had 32 homes that went into status change. Normally, it's like 5 or 6. 32 homes. There were 7 homes that went to 100% complete. So we're really starting to see the fruits of our labor and efforts, and so we're actually starting to see that we're closing out several of these houses. And so I'm telling you all that to say, next month, I would like to give you a little bit more detailed, spend some more time, show you some of the images, some of the site work, some of the things that are going on in a more detailed report on Housing, Jobs, Sustainable Communities Act. So would like to bring that back to the council next week, or next month, sorry. With that, do you have any questions?
All right, thank you, Todd. Any questions for Todd?
Yes, sir.
Yo.
Yeah, just real quick, that one new house there in Vine right there on 82 coming in, where everybody's talking about it, really looks good.
Yeah.
If I could have 2 minutes when we get done.
Sure.
Anyone else? If not, Todd, we appreciate you, buddy. Good report.
All right, remember, Michael Lynn, 2 is enough.
2 stop. All right, next up, Veteran Center, Barbara Foreman.
Good afternoon, council.
Hello.
You have our report. And also, I have a little bit I'd like to add, if there's no questions.
Nope, you go ahead.
Okay, so we have, just to let you know, we have surpassed the number that we were supposed to, our goal for the Sergeant Fox grant, our suicide prevention program. It's good to say that we have met our numbers on that, but it's not, good to say that we have that much need for suicide prevention, within our area. But we are now, we have submitted application for 3rd year already. Time has flew by on that grant. And so I just kind of wanted to update you. They're changing lives with that program.
Good.
And so I just, I love to report that part of it always. We had, as you know, we had a successful Warrior flight. And we'll probably be scheduled again. I believe the target date is September 9th for the next one, if everything goes good. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. Good report.
Okay.
All right, any questions for Barbara? If not, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do. All right, old business done pending, new business. Speaker Shambaugh, you want to take that one?
This is a resolution authorizing an application to the Federal Highway Administration for Tribal Transportation Program Bridge Funding. I put that in form of a motion.
We have a motion. Can I get a second? Open for discussion?
Could I ask also for a roll call vote on this item?
You bet. Any discussion? If none, all in favor? Well, how do we, Shelley, you go ahead and do the roll call.
Johnny Kidwell? Yay. Darrell Legg?
Yes.
Dora Petskowski? Yes. Cody Poindexter?
Yes.
Joshua Sam?
Yes.
Mike Shambaugh? Yes. Melvina Shot Pouch? Yes. E.O. Smith?
Yes.
Contessa Teehee?
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez? Yes. Sasha Black Fox Qualls? Yes. Danny Callison.
Yes.
Julia Coates. Joe Deere.
Yes.
Mike Dobbins.
Yes.
Kevin Easley.
Yes.
Lisa Hall.
Abstain.
The motion carries 16 to 1.
All
And
right.
One is an abstention.
Can I ask that go to full council this evening?
We need to make a motion for that? Okay, you bet. Thank you, Mike. Okay. All right, number 2, Victoria, you want to take that one?
Sure. This is a resolution authorizing the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, to revise and update the Cherokee Nation's inventory of tribal transportation facilities. Put that in the form of a motion.
Second, and I also ask that there be a roll call vote on this motion as well.
Okay. Shelley?
Mike Dobbins.
Yes.
Kevin Easley.
Yes.
Lisa Hall.
Abstain.
Johnny Kidwell.
Yes.
Darrell Legg.
Yes.
Dora Petzkowski.
Yes.
Cody Poindexter.
Yes.
Joshua Sam.
Yes.
Mike Shambaugh.
Yes.
Melvina Shot Pouch.
Yes.
E.O. Smith.
Yes.
Condesa Teehee.
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez.
Yes.
Sasha Black Box Qualls. Danny Callison.
Yes.
Julia Coates.
Yes.
Joe Deere.
Yes.
Passes 16 to 1, and that one is an abstention.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Number 3, let me see. Condesa, you want to take this one?
This is a resolution responding to Legislative Act 01-22 related to homelessness, and I put this forward in the form of a motion.
Do we have a motion? Any discussion? First, let me say this. There's a dollar amount attached to this, and I think it's in the wrong committee. I think it probably should be under E and F. Go ahead. So,
Well, yeah, the dollar amount for 25 acres is up to $7 million. Is that what you're,
that's this one right here.
yeah, referring to?
So we need a motion to table?
Well, I would make that motion to table.
Okay. And another motion on top of that would be, I don't think it's appropriate to do under community. I think since there's a dollar amount attached to it, it probably should be under E and F, correct? It can? Okay. Then we have a motion on the floor to table?
Second.
Hey. Go ahead. Hey, it's you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not my place to debate where there's no place for me to debate. Certainly, if there's a motion to table, I did want the opportunity to address the procedural issue that the councilman has raised, but I'll do that when the time's appropriate at your direction, including now. If it's appropriate. I did want to say that these are dollars already appropriated by the council. We take the resolutions to the council as part of the Respond, Recover, and Rebuild plan when we take specific action. I will say the time sensitivity surrounding this issue probably means that this does not happen as a result of a delay, but that pressure alone shouldn't force us into a policy decision. But I wouldn't be doing this council a service if I didn't disclose, having heard for the first time that we're tabling, that could be a problem in terms of timing. But certainly this is the council's provenance, council's wheelhouse to make this decision. But I do think, Mr. Speaker, I owe that explanation. Just didn't have the opportunity before this moment to think that there was occasion for it. Thank you.
This committee has jurisdiction
Okay. So we have a motion to table. Okay. So if we do that, it fails completely, correct? It's too late? Is that what you're saying, Chief?
My concern from a period of time ago is that when we get this far down the line to start construction, that we won't make the ARPA deadlines. So I can't definitively say this won't happen. I have great concerns that we can pull this off in terms of executing a game plan if there's uncertainty going into the next committee meeting. If there's questions to be answered, Counselor, we'd be happy to answer those, and that perhaps might get us to a point where the next committee meeting, if we can survive that period of time, questions could be answered in addition to the presentation that was provided last month and the follow-up information. Happy to do that. If that's not welcome at this particular moment, then happy to do it offline. I can't predict anything. I mean, if it comes down to it, we'll withdraw the motion if we don't believe it's time, we can do this in a period of time, and that will certainly save the council for having to deal with this issue at the next committee.
So, should we, so let's withdraw. Can we go back to discussion? Where you at?
In order to do what? What?
In order to go back into discussion on the original motion.
Oh, to go back into discussion on the original motion? Okay, I'll withdraw my motion to table in order for discussion to proceed. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so,
I second it. Withdraw the second.
okay. So I kind of think that if we can enter into discussion, maybe make a friendly amendment to offer a different amount for the property. We like the location. We think it's a safe location, but I don't think that the council is happy with the dollar amount presented. And so can we make a friendly amendment to maybe propose a different dollar amount and see if that will work?
It's my understanding that money's already been appropriated. If you could address that, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, and by appropriate, I mean the council's passed a budget, and we have also the Respond, Recover, and Rebuild framework, but no funds have been committed. We wouldn't do it in the reverse order, certainly, in terms of making a commitment of funds to a partner with that. There has been a public knowledge of this because of the last committee meeting, which I think is healthy. I think the community of Tahlequah needed to know that, and I think in addition to the council knowing that. My invitation, which I expressed to a number of council members prior to this meeting to suggest alternatives or different amounts, never withdrew that invitation, so it remains. So I would be, I'm here at the pleasure of the council in terms of how this resolution proceeds. And so if there's a different appetite in terms of dollars, that could be adjusted. Can't predict the outcome, other than I'll do my level best to achieve what I think the council will express consensus on, which is to do something different on the homeless shelter. We'll keep in mind that this isn't purchasing property for $7 million. This is a package of economic development relating to a sports complex, which is related to this property in that the city is vacating the present sports complex to go somewhere else and rebuild something that we think would be beneficial to the nation and meets the interest of the nation. If that number is not $7 million, I'll repeat what I told a number of councilors before this meeting, which is I am ready, willing, and able to hear alternatives, and certainly there's lots of ways to do that, including here on the floor of committee.
Do we have other land available? Other options?
We've explored other options, but my sense of the options when you have a crisis shelter is it's a bunch of options that are not great because it's a crisis shelter. And anyone who lives in proximity to a crisis shelter would have a sensitivity to that. The advantage of this over potential other sites is it's right by the police station. And it seemed to me that if I lived in a community that needed a crisis shelter and potentially was getting a crisis shelter, situating it near the police department would be the best of alternatives that were further away from a police station. And so, and then you have the advantage of the infrastructure being in place. There was a question about the land title issue that I'm fully satisfied has been resolved, and the Attorney General's here to talk about that. But again, when you get down to not talking in the abstract about addressing homelessness and you start talking about actual investment and the actual situation of a homeless shelter, there's really no great options. And so the best of the available options is situating it closer to the police station. The other option, and I don't have it precisely at my fingertips, so we can probably get it in real time at this committee, is some other property that's owned in Tahlequah. It's not near the police station. And I don't know the state of the infrastructure, and it certainly wouldn't be involved in a package of economic development. But those are the trade-offs.
Any further discussion? All right,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be added as sponsor.
okay.
You know, I think this, we had quite a bit of discussion about this the other day, and, it is something that is needed all throughout the country, not just here. And, like we talked about, Cherokee Nation seems to step up and do things better than others most of the time. And, I'm going to support it. I know that it's going to bring, some issues, but things have to be addressed, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to keeping the same results, and nobody's getting help. So I hope that, I know that there's probably some people around the property who don't like it. I mean, it's that way when you build something, somewhat controversial maybe. But for our people and what we do to help our people, this is something that is greatly needed. So I'm going to support.
Condessa?
Yeah, I understand we're talking about a big topic. And when we look at the task force guidelines, there was a significant number of initiatives that are recommended for dealing with the unhoused population that's here in Tahlequah. And then we also have a number of constituents in the Tahlequah area who are concerned about the building of a crisis shelter in some way, shape, or form exacerbating the existing problem. And that's kind of a difficult thing to address because there seems to be a lot of misinformation associated with the topic, unfortunately. And I think some of the objection that I've heard in regards to the price tag, which is, it is a significant amount of money, and we are trying to be good stewards of because the money's not really ours. It belongs to the Cherokee people, and I understand that that's something that all of us are concerned with, and all of us are trying to think about, and we're also trying to think about generations ahead as well, and the positive impact that a crisis shelter could have on people. Ultimately, this is a difficult. It's a difficult decision to make, and I think that's why we're continuing to have so much discussion around this particular decision. Would you be willing to speak a little bit more toward the administration of those monies? Not all of it is for the land. You mentioned a comprehensive economic development package, and if you'd speak to that maybe a little bit more explicitly, I think it would be very helpful.
Certainly. So part of this is to help the city of Tahlequah build a softball complex, which would be of the type that would attract what the community does not have now, which is a substantial amount of visitors. And anyone who has young or children that are involved in these sports know that it's intensive in terms of travel and stay. And the city, and of course economic development numbers, there's no crystal ball, but they're looking at an annual $1.8 million spike in economic impact in the region. Because of that, 14 jobs created. We can share this info with you certainly if it hasn't already been shared. So part of this is an investment. If it was, this could have been a standalone investment in a ballpark that we think this community would benefit from and the Cherokee Nation would benefit from. That could have been the end of it. But there's a opportunity for a package here to get the land, invest with the city on this complex, do something for the economy, do something for outdoor recreation, and pave the way for what is a really difficult thing, which is where to put a crisis shelter if we're going to put it at all. The dollar amount is important to the administration simply because we want to be able to go in and reach an agreement. But ultimately, and the council lady's right, this is the Cherokee people's money. I do not take that lightly, and I don't presuppose that the dollar figure that we propose to the council, it has to be the final dollar figure. It wasn't sort of made up out of whole cloth, but it's also not the gospel. It is something that deserves some thought and consideration. But it does seem to, administration does seem to me that this is an investment that will inure to the benefit of the region. It's not simply a community investment of the region, and helps us pave the way towards what I believe firmly is as ideal a location as you can get for a crisis shelter in a world of non-ideal locations. And that's where sort of my mind is on the subject. But in terms of economic development, that's it, making this place a center for that sort of activity, which presently is in other parts of the region. So that's what I can share with you there, Council Lady.
Well, I really appreciate that feedback because I know that this has been an intense topic of discussion for some period of time. And ever since the discussion was public with our last council meeting, I haven't had a lot of constituents reach out. I've had some people, a handful of people approach me. And, one of their concerns was that we're going to get an influx of unhoused individuals from outside of the community. But with the crisis shelter that we're looking at, it's some ways down the road, it sounds like. What is our timeline looking like on that crisis shelter?
Well, we would have to obligate the funds this year, and we would certainly have to be completing it over the next couple of years. So it's a period of years before it's stood up, and we may have a more precise time frame. A lot of it was dependent on when we can get started. In fact, Mr. Enlow and the Housing Authority will sort of manage that construction. So there's going to be a period of time, and I think it'll be a period of time of public education and also developing the management of it. But I mean, it is coming in a period of time, and I want Mr. Enlow to mention that. I did want to mention one thing about the economic impact of the other part of the investment. The estimate is that in 7 years that we will get the return on the investment. Now that, of course, doesn't enter into the treasure of the Cherokee Nation, but it is in terms of economic impact a repayment of that investment. So, Mr. Enlow, what do we think on the time frame? Go ahead, sir.
So, given that we have to have this committed, we have to do some design work in association with that. So we would actually do this as a design-build construction. So we're designing it and building it roughly at the same time. And so, hopefully have everything committed under contract by October. Because, if we put this out for bid and go through 30 days, put that out for bid, we're already into May, looking at June. And so to make sure we have everything locked up and committed, and then construction would start, and we would have it finished sometime early in '25, early to mid-'25.
And if it's okay for me to address a question, Mr. Enlow, would that be acceptable? Sure. Okay. You have some experience also with programs that served unhoused populations. And I know you've done a lot of research in this area. Have you found it to be the case that, and I understand it's a bit of a, not necessarily a catch-22, but the fact that we will see some increase in the unhoused population because there will be a shelter that serves them. But in terms of this idea that there are going to be like busloads of people that are going to be bussed in and dropped off, is that something that you've seen as consistent, with some of these crisis shelter institutions?
No. In fact, I'll reference Anna and Terry Lee. They spent a lot of time and resources researching this, but, I'm concerned about it from a housing perspective. We've got, I just shared with you the households that we serve, both with rental assistance, with lease to own, that are in low rent. There's 1,504 people that are receiving rental assistance currently, and that is maxed out at $330 a month. And given the current rents rates, that is not enough. But we're struggling, even with the 1,504 that we serve every month at $330 a month. In addition, last month, in the presentation, Chief denoted the more than $1 million, I think it was $1.3 million, that is provided in hotel vouchers every month. The problem with that is we don't transition more than 10% of those people into permanent housing. And that's really why I want to be involved, is to make sure that we can help convert this permanency rate to a greater percentage higher than 10%. Because if we really want to start to solve the problem, we need to work on creating opportunities for people to transition into full-time housing. And I think this is a good step, because if we don't do anything about it, as Speaker said earlier, we're just going to continue to do the same thing, expect different results. And so that's why I believe the homeless shelter is strategic, and it's necessary for us to be able to begin to transition those. From my perspective, I've lived in a community like Flagstaff, which is right off the I-40 corridor. In the summertime, if it reaches 90 degrees, the residents of Flagstaff have decided that Armageddon has happened and the apocalypse is here, because they're accustomed to temperatures at 75. And so there are a lot of individuals that are transitioning across the United States and make a stop in Flagstaff. And I've seen what that community's done to address the homelessness and assist those from programs like Better Bucks, which I think is a great example of how to have the community behind you with a nonprofit entity and help those individuals transition. And what it looks like today. And then I would encourage the council, if you want to find out more about what other countries are doing to combat homelessness, go look at Denmark. And there's a video out there. It's about 20 minutes long, and it talks about their strategies and what they've seen. And that is, they have not seen the influx. In fact, it's the opposite. And there's individuals with stories that said they would be dead today if they didn't have that housing available to them. So a lot of great stories that are out there and potential, just from my perspective and what I've seen through my years and my research, and also having the luxury of the perspective of seeing Flagstaff, Arizona, and its homelessness, which is much greater than what even Tahlequah's seen this area in this community.
Well, I really appreciate that. I think that hopefully some of this public discussion can alleviate some individual concerns, some of which have been raised to me specifically. And kind of dialing back to the economic development portion of this particular outlay of funds. It was mentioned that there would be a significant economic impact on the Tahlequah and surrounding community area. And I understand that, Cherokee Nation is probably the best partner the city of Tahlequah has ever had. Cherokee Nation is the best partner, or one of the best partners that the state of Oklahoma has ever had, in terms of, putting money into the community, seeing a positive economic impact, because when dollars turn over within the community, it creates a healthier economy locally. And so I appreciate that observation, and I appreciate the observations also from Executive Director Enlow, and I'm going to go ahead and cede the floor back. I'll go ahead.
If I might add one additional thing. So in years past, I worked a lot dealing with education and what that looks like to transition and increase our graduation rates. And we, as the Cherokee Nation, went to the Harlem Children's Zone in Harlem, New York, and studied their program and what they were doing to transition and change that community. They changed their community through education. And one of the things that there's a whole book and a whole series that we studied on that, and one of the things that they did was they started out with pre-K. And then they realized we're not starting early enough, and so they started their program back to pregnant moms and attracting those first-time pregnant moms, much like we're doing with the Bridges program, to help them transition over, because they weren't starting early enough. And that's what I feel like we're doing by not addressing homelessness and starting early enough. We're starting with rental assistance. And we've got to start earlier in that process to be able to move them forward if we want to start to affect a change. So those two programs, in my mind, parallel, because they have transitioned and transformed the Harlem community based on the efforts that they've been going through for the last 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that.
So you're upstream solutions, essentially.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think we've got to capture that. If we don't, then we're missing the boat, and we won't really start to solve this problem.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time, Chair.
Councilman Easley?
I've been walking around a lot.
I know.
So some of you wanted to hear from me. I've been under the assumption that this would have to go to council in May if it passes today. And so my brainstorm idea, whether it would be correct or not, was to move this matter to the Rules Committee in April, and then it would still be up for vote for council in May. That would allow council 10 more days or so to consider this, but I don't know if that will be possible or not.
Okay. Julia? Julia? Can we yield just for a second for?
Sure, of course.
I spoke very briefly with Deputy Secretary of State, and I think the intention would be to put it on tonight's full council agenda because of the time constraints that were referenced. As I was explaining earlier, the timeline still wouldn't work even if we moved it out to say refer to rules or ENF in 10 days. So I think if I'm stating this correctly, I think tonight is the night they're asking for on this. So it would be voted on today and then amend the agenda for tonight for full rules.
Okay. Julia?
The reason I asked to be added to, as a sponsor to this is because of the 50-plus page comprehensive plan, right, that is attached to this, that this is an important component of that overall plan. And, I mean, Todd, you're talking about Flagstaff. I'm going to ratchet that up several more notches. I'm going to talk about Los Angeles, right? And the problem in Los Angeles. But whether it's the smallest community in this country or the biggest city in this country, this is something that every community in this country is grappling with, I think, from on some level or another. And I wonder sometimes what are we supposed to do? Because everybody is just wanting to shove this somewhere else, you know, and no, we got to deal with it, you know, in our community. And I think one of the things that, you know, that it's the same conversation everywhere, it seems like, is that there's some kinds of ideas in people's minds that this is about a homeless community, an unhoused community that is, you know, a lot of addicts or a lot of mental illness, you know, and that these are kinds of the front visual sorts of stereotypes that have been around for a long time that people are latching onto, and I don't want that in my neighborhood, you know. I'll tell you, in the city where I live, there isn't a neighborhood anywhere that you know, that doesn't have unhoused people, you know, living in RVs on the streets, transiting through it, you know, you name it. I mean, it's there every day. And what I have come to understand is that a lot of the people, they're actually employed, you know, they're actually employed. but they're still not making enough to make whatever housing costs are, and they're extraordinary in Los Angeles, granted, but they're extraordinary here too, on a relative scale of things for people. And so I just want to put that out there, that it's such an overwhelming problem that, I've taken to there are programs, and this should be an institutional response, but in the meantime, people need some cash. So it's like I've taken to just handing out some cash, to people when I see them on a street corner or whatever it may be. And it's just, we can't just shove this off elsewhere. People, we've got to deal with this. And I think that what impresses me about the initiative of the Cherokee Nation and of this administration at this time is that I have this 50-page, rather detailed thing now. It's, I certainly look at this and I say, this is huge and it is optimistic, but there's a plan here, and there are people all across this nation who are involved in this plan. And we are going to pay some substantive attention to this issue, and we have some rather extraordinary funding at this time to do this, and we need to do this. And we are not talking about doing opening a crisis homeless shelter, as just a standalone thing. We have a wellness program that is being expanded. In conjunction with that, we have all kinds of things that Anna and her group are doing in conjunction with this. We have educational initiatives that are coming up in conjunction with this. I mean, this is recognizing that we are not dealing with a problem that just exists in a vacuum of some sort, right? There are a lot of things that are going on, but I guess what I ultimately want to say is that I strongly feel that this must be part of it, because these are people that often through no fault of their own, right? Probably more often than not through no fault of their own, are in a situation that they never wanted to be in, that they would like to get out of as soon as they possibly can, that are willing to do what it takes to get themselves out of it if they can get a hand, some help, a hand up of some sort. And just to understand that I don't think in Los Angeles I've ever encountered an unhoused person who was someone to be feared, that was someone that would not be absolutely welcome in my neighborhood, if they had the money to pay the rent somewhere. And that's, I just want to, I guess I just want to make a statement, about the comprehensiveness of this, the thoroughness of it, and that we need to do this with courage, These are not folks to be afraid of. These are our families oftentimes, right? These are our relatives. They're people we know or that we would know, in different circumstances. We'd be happy to know. And so I want to support this. I want to. Thank you.
Councilman Kidwell.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I appreciate the remarks by Dr. Coates there. It means a lot to hear different perspectives on this. I will say I'm very sensitive to the fact that this is not being built in my district and it's not in my backyard. It's not lost on me. I totally understand. I think that we were briefed on this at our last meetings, and we all were able to read the information that was provided, and this resolution specifically states that it's up to a set amount. It's not a set amount, it's up to that amount. And we have said for the, the chief or his delegate to negotiate that. And we can only hope that they'll negotiate the best price possible. And if at the end of the day, that best price possible doesn't sit well with the council, then we don't do that again, right? But the way this reads to me is we're saying we're willing to pay up to a certain amount to make this push through, and I'm in favor of that. I support that, and let's hope that if that the chief or his delegate goes into negotiations as honestly and as openly as they possibly can and do what's best for the Cherokee Nation. We're expecting that to happen. And, if we can get a better price than that, I'm sure that they'll get a better price than that. And, but this is up to that amount. It's not a set amount. It's just up to that amount. That's how I finish my remarks. I'm in favor. Thank you, sir.
Speaker.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with pretty much everything that Councilman Kidwell said and some of what Councilman Coates said, but I come from a different background, and I can tell you that the biggest obstacle and concern that in Tulsa for its police officers is the homelessness. That is the biggest thing that they deal with every day. So that being said, we don't have what they have in Tulsa. We don't have what they have in Arkansas. We don't yet. But, I know that with them having to deal with the mental health issues and things like that, because I talk to the guys, monthly. So we have an opportunity to maybe get a jump on that where we don't allow that to happen to us like it's happening to other places. And it is time sensitive. And, I just think that in good faith, I trust our chief. I think he makes good, sound decisions. I think our financial people make really good decisions. I mean, we deal with a lot of money in the nation, and what we do with that money, normally we make good decisions. And I don't care if it's 10 days or 20 days. I don't think my opinion is going to change on this. 10 days isn't going to help me. I mean, it's not. So, I think that we need to take the initiative. It's a difficult initiative, but we need to. The opportunity's here, and I would hate to say that we lost that opportunity to do it. And, if you think you don't want to jump in with 2 feet, don't. I mean, but if you do, I have to use a little bit of good faith and think that our leaders know what they're doing. Because if you look at our nation, we've been very prosperous, and I trust their judgment, and I am going to support this.
All right. If no one else has anything to say, do we have a motion to approve? I thought we were in discussion. Okay, sorry.
It's been a while.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. All right, announcements. Next meeting. Oh, okay, we are moving this to full council tonight. Okay. Next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 13th at 4 p.m. Can I have one more motion?